life. Thank you, Mrs. DeGraw. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. I want to welcome everyone to our December board meeting. And Mrs. DeGraw, if you would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The floor will be open for a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The floor will be open for a motion to approve the minutes from our previous meeting.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes from the November 23, 2021 meeting.
There's a second.
Sorry.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Williams, your superintendent report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I first was putting the superintendent report together, I thought, oh, it's only been 2.5 weeks since we had our November meeting was pushed back due to the ISBA conference. But I thought, man, there's still a lot of things to report on. I was able to go to the Idaho Superintendent's Network the second week, the first 8th and 9th of December over in Boise. I was able to meet with superintendents from across the state and have some professional development of that. Mr. DeGraw, could you have those windows closed, please?
Just a word.
I have
A little glare.
the glare on the screen.
Oh, that's better. So much.
Perfect. And then just to highlight for our school board, we did go to the ISBA conference. We did have some awards that were given out at that time. And so there's bronze, silver, excuse me, and other ones that we just attached here. Just wanted to be able to do this. I know you guys love the recognition to be able to do that, but the ISBA does have leadership awards for board members and for attending the different programs. And so there's gold levels, silver levels, and bronze levels on that. Mrs. Grubb, make sure I do not forget somebody on one of those. So that one just shows what the different levels are. And Tyson was given the bronze level. Congratulations, Tyson. And Andrea, also a bronze level. Andrea, bronze level on that. And silver, Tanis, for chair, along with Willie Schmidt. So thank you everybody for being trained. I know sometimes we might laugh about having our board members, but it's one of the things that on the breakout sessions at the Idaho Superintendent Network, they have 5 or 6 different breakout sessions, and there are some concerns. We were fortunate as a board to be able to retain just the consistency. I'm not saying that bringing more board members on isn't a bad thing, but it's one of the things that when research does show that consistency over time allows for districts to be more productive. When there's a lot of turnover, whether it's in the superintendent position or whether it's on school boards or whether it's on administration, I believe it was Dr. Bardsley that came and presented with his research. He said a mediocre administrator is better than having one turnover every 2 or 3 years. And so I'm not saying that we're a mediocre board. I think we're an amazing board, but in those breakout sessions, they just talked about board trainings, and I was able to share how the board training has really helped our school board. I think it's been something that's brought us together, that's given us a clear focus. And I just wanted to say thank you to our school board for leading by example when it comes to professional development, learning our jobs and how to do that, and for your time. So that was one thing that we wanted to highlight with the board and superintendent. I'll move to the other ones. So I didn't print off the certificates to give them to you right now. Transportation, we have our fuel estimates. This is the time of year where it's typically the lowest. I know it's no surprise that the prices of fuel are about $1 more than they were last year, or even $1.30 more. But we were able to, what we do with our summer fuel and our winter blend, and so we actually take the two and mix them together to get our winter fuel blend. And so we were able to get an estimate locked in at $2.69 a gallon for our summer fuel. It won't be delivered until probably late February, March. I know that's one that maybe some of the farmers and other people in the region are doing as the different quotes that came in. Ike's was the cheapest that was able to get us that quote. So we locked that in, knowing it's about $1 more than it was last year, but that's just kind of what it's gonna be for everybody. So I appreciate Mr. Pinkoff for all of his efforts in the transportation department. It's one of those things. I know our farmers, Tyson, you're with your trucking company and everything, it's kind of the same thing. So that's what we'll do. We'll once we get those finalized, we will ratify those in an action item. Maintenance, grounds, and custodial, and this was on purpose. Thank you for the snow removal, and more snow removal. What a hectic week for our maintenance crew. Definitely, as they have the snow, they start clearing the parking lot, and then it just starts to dump on them. And you know, I can't say enough about our maintenance department with all they're doing, our custodial on grounds. Food service, still planning for the different remodels. I mentioned that last time that we're looking at remodeling the Hamer lunchroom. Also, food service is planning for some summer professional development, and they've been helping with the concessions. They were at the basketball game last night, and so they have some plans to, with a lot of different regulations going forward. Appreciate everything that our food service people are doing. Technology, Mr. Weeks has had a busy week. I don't know if you guys noticed any of the power surges at home at all, but we had a couple different power surges here at the school, and power surges are not friendly to technology. And so some of our servers were impacted on that. As I talked with him about that situation, we're still working to get one of them up and running. We're able to have the basic functions still here at school, but with future E-rate grants, he's looking to get more technology in that will protect against those surge protections when it comes to those servers.
Was there ever an explanation as to what causes the surges?
It's just what on the grid, and so there's a lot of those things, whether there's a delay or weather. But now I'm starting to look at those surges in a completely different way. I see them come on, I'm like, no, it's gonna be expensive, or it's gonna be a headache for somebody on that. But appreciate our supervisors for all that they do. In our schools, here's the welcome to school from this morning here at the Terrace parking lot. And so no, I'm not kidding. This is a real picture. So Mr. Johnson is Elf on the Shelf, and Mr. Williams is the bunny from the Christmas Story. I know that I'm glad we started doing this. I know first and foremost, we're not dressing up every single day, but it's a safety thing that we've been doing at the parking lot, as we have a lot of cars coming in and out, and appreciate Mr. Johnson and his efforts. Something that I like to do to get out and get some fresh air. So sometimes you'll see me out there, not always in a bunny suit. I was a little bit nervous this morning. Bunnies in Mud Lake don't always go good. I only had a couple students try to swerve and hit the bunny, but no, joking on that one. But it was, a lot of fun with that. A lot of Christmas and holiday spirit going on. Our elementary students did perform down at the Mud Lake Museum. That's both Territon and Hamer Elementary. Appreciate our bus drivers and our teachers being able to go down there, and the good folks down at the Mud Lake Museum during their Christmas tree lane activities. We look forward to keep doing that. That's a fun activity for our kids and for our community. We do have several Christmas programs coming up. Tomorrow, the Territon third grade is having a Christmas Around the World. This is just the third grade only Christmas program. That will be here in the Chapeltorium at the district office. And there's a 10 o'clock matinee, and that's really a performance for the students. So we're going to bring the other kids in. However, if there are parents that can't make the 2 o'clock performance, they're always welcome. We'll figure out a place for them on that. And then at 2 o'clock, that's going to be a performance for the parents. Hamer, they will have their traditional Christmas program. I remember being part of that program as a young boy. My grandma was one of teachers up there, and I can remember the different things. And that tradition's been going on. How long did you say, Netra?
I think it's about 80 this year.
80 years
Mm.
for that tradition.
Your grandmother was fantastic.
We
She used to go out some great,
she was
great.
she was direct enough with the kids that we knew where we stood, that we were not gonna mess up, and we were not gonna pick our
You
noses.
didn't.
And so we'll look forward to the Hamer Elementary one. I think Santa usually shows up on.
It always shows
Always
up.
shows up.
Has done for
Every
80
time,
years.
every time I've been there, it's like
And he
clockwork.
always has an orange.
Or into the bag.
Fancy candy.
I'll be there, and my kids will be there to watch it. Well, Tarleton will also have programs going on for pre-K through 6th. So Monday, December 20th, that's going to be an afternoon one. Again, that's going to be here in the district office in the Chapeltorium. It's going to be for the PM kindergarten, preschool through 6th. And then Tuesday, December 21st will be 10:30 to AM for the AM kindergarten. Moving on, those literacy books that Mr. Johnson came in and talked about, they came in. And so we were able to get them. He's getting them inventoried, and we'll get them assigned to both elementary schools. Additionally, there was one question the board had is about, how do you know about the what's in them, the titles and everything. So Mr. Johnson is having his leadership team and the PTO president review each book prior to it. If they see any concerns, they'll bring that to the board, but it will be reviewed before we're not just pulling them out of a box and sending them in front. So they'll look at those. Tarleton Elementary's had a bake sale. The PTO, junior high student council teamed up. Board chair has helped out with that as part of her PTO duties as well. So she was there the last couple of days, but they raised over $1,000 to go to needy families. And that was just the elementary. I do want to give credit where it's due. When I made my homemade cookies, I would like to thank Dick Brolum for his help with those. But they were homemade, just, Mr. Brolum helped out with that. And so we do live in a generous community. That's the one thing that a lot of people mentioned. There's also a food drive that PTO junior high also did a food drive, and maybe saw if you came in the front door here at the district office, a lot of those canned goods there. High school's not going to get left behind.
In addition to the cans they collected, they also collected cash
To go
and
toward,
raised over $700 for the can.
I think Mr. Mackey told me it was $800. And so I believe they're going to distribute those to Lions Club. That's what it says
Yep.
right there. The local Lions Club will help take those and give those out. And so wonderful, we live in a blessed community, and our students are wanting to share that back with those that they can. National Honor Society has organized a competition between the classes, and the money towards this will go to the Adopt a Kid fundraiser. And so right now it's over $2,700, and that's amazing. So Adopt a Kid would be just like more Secret Santa. So they've signed up for a couple Secret Santa. They're going to adopt a couple of the families and then go do all the shopping. And they'll actually be doing that this Monday. They'll take the proceeds. They're going to team up with Mr. Harrelson's guitar class. He's going to sit outside, continue to fundraise while he sings Christmas songs with his guitar classes, while the student council goes in to purchase the clothing items and whatever that the families will need. Then they'll bring them back, they'll wrap those items, and there's some process to delivering them to the families. I'm not sure what they are for each family, but it's, this is really gonna bless the lives of some families at this time of year. Panther Express newspaper, Mrs. DeGraw, I forgot to grab that newspaper.
I'll go grab those.
If you could grab the physical ones. Mrs. Stedman in her graphic arts design class coupled that with a newspaper. We haven't had a newspaper for the students come out, so she thought, let's combine the graphic arts class with the newspaper. And so they came out with one of those editions. I'll pull that up right here just so those people that are watching at home. So you'll see that this is the first one, and I probably could have just gone over this with everything, but this is a copy for each board member. This is what we're handing out to the board. There's yours right there. So it just talks about the Adopt a Kid for Christmas, a lot of the same things that we have. talked about the athletes. A lot of these things have been presented in board meetings. Talks about the FA, BPA, the FCCLA, and the different clubs that are going on. Panther Bucks, INL, honor roll. So if we're interested in looking at the honor roll for the first trimester, high honors calendar, different things on the sports events. The wrestling team has a churchy fundraiser going on. The rosters for the girls, highlight on the with the coaches, and so also with the music events. Ooh, that was me right there, by the way, just so you know. Highlighting some of the jazz band and everything that Mrs. Parker has going on. So a lot of fun things here. Here are the students from the school that are in the community parade, the Little Mermaid coming up in March. Christmas question year from some from the teachers and so the students. And here's one from Mr. Guimar, who is in the audience. What are some family traditions you enjoy? Mr. Guimar enjoys making cookies. Chocolate. My glasses. Had the bunny suit on, making chocolates. So, so it's a fun thing. I just wanted to be able to highlight that as part of the superintendent report. A couple other things besides the Panther Express, one of our students was a Berkeley Birdshaw, won first place in a color competition. We had some volleyball athletes, even though volleyball and cross country are over, some of the state teams were selected. So Lindsay Dowling, Jordan Torgerson, and Jaylee Ball were named on the 2A second team all-state list. And Hiram Spencer was recognized as one of the top cross country athletes in our area. His name appeared on the all area second team list in the Post Register newspaper. Winter sports are going, really busy week. There will be games every single night until Saturday. Here, their home games this week. And Santa is expected to make an appearance at Saturday's girls' game as well. And maybe he's just getting ready before he goes to the Hamer one on Monday, but he's a busy guy. And at all those NFHS network that our school has been putting on, Mr. Hadley is broadcasting the varsity games. I'm able to sit and help him with a lot of those. We invite those that can't make it to listen in. We've had some really good feedback from Mr. Hadley's broadcasting. He announces those games. And one individual say, wow, it was just like I was watching a college game or a game on TV. And that's just one thing that he has chosen to do above and beyond of what Mr. Hadley's responsibilities. This is not anything we asked him to do. It's just something that we know that those that watch the NFHS, it's more enjoyable when it's broadcast. And so he does a fantastic job with that. Really appreciate everything that he's done. But that's my superintendent report. Quick with that one. And so a lot of fun things going on. Christmas right around the corner. So we're excited.
It's busy.
Really busy.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Williams. Mrs. Clark, do we have any public comment?
No, we do not.
Before we open for a motion to approve the consent agenda,
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Do you want to skip our other action items? Yes.
No, so Mr. Guimar is here to talk about 4.1. So let's move right into those.
Or then. Join us.
Okay, thank you. This, I don't know if this might be the same thing.
It might be the same thing. So I
Okay,
asked,
perfect.
Mr. Guimar reached out to me and I asked him to come in. He put this together and I put it on our action item part. And so I'll start with the what, Mr. Guimar, then I'll turn the time over. I was going to read this. The high school has an opportunity to expand our academic offerings to our students. Mr. Guimar has inquired about the possibility of adding a health occupations program at our school. And this program is an extension of the fundamentals of health profession and medical terminology classes. So it just builds on what we're offering. And so with that, keep going with what.
Perfect.
With
So a lot of things that Mr. Williams has asked us to do is to increase the number of opportunities that we give to students. And so we have a student at the beginning of this year that she's done the medical terminology, the allied health. As a junior, she got done with the EMT courses, EMT A and B, so now she's able to ride with the ambulance. She came to me at the beginning of this year and said that she was interested in the IDLA Certified Nursing Assistant Program. And so as we started that, each of the things on here is what I received from the instructor through IDLA that teaches that. And so we've been working together, me and the student, and then also this instructor on how we can expand this program. Over the Thanksgiving break, I went into Good Samaritan in Idaho Falls and went to Life Care Center. And I was talking with them on how we could come up with different partnerships in order to get students into nursing home facilities. Idaho Falls, I live there, and so that was one of the easier ones to go to. It could also be possibly in Rexburg if we find somebody there. But what we're trying to do is just figure out how it is that we could get a certified nurse, or a registered nurse, or an LPN in order to expand this program here. And so I've been working with the director of the health programs in Bonneville County School District as well. Amy, and I can't remember her last name, but she's talked with me about inviting me out to their technical advisory committee, so that now that she sees that there's somebody else with a rural interest, they have a lot of nursing facilities, they've got a lot of resources there. And they said it would be good for you to come so that you can then talk with all of these other schools that we have involved. And so that hopefully we can get that access and those resources to more students, including those that come from rural schools. On here, as it shows, there's different requirements the students have to have. And we meet these through the offerings that we have at the school through Mrs. Stedman's class. Sometimes even if a student isn't able to take the fundamentals of health professions along with the medical terminology, then we do have students that'll take one through IDLA and the other one here at the school. A lot of times it's just because of the scheduling conflict that happened. But everybody that's in those classes, they do have a CPR card. And then as you can see here also, the thing about that is I guess they don't technically have to go through the EMT program in order to be a part of the registered nursing program. And so it could actually open it up to a lot more students as well in there. But the things that specifically wanted to talk with you about is that there are requirements for the school. And one of those is that because the students need to have skill training and clinical, be in a clinical, like a facility center, there are these two different requirements. It's a total of 80 hours that they're in this course. And so 40 hours is in a classroom setting, and the other 40 hours come from being in the facility center. And so for our classroom setting, I've talked with Dina Stedman. Some of the things that Bonneville said that we would need is like a hospital bed, a dummy, sheets, linens, pillow, some sort of commode or a bedstand there, a nightstand, a wheelchair. They say lifts, but it's not required. So with Mrs. Stedman, she said that because of her connection, she has a lot of these resources already. It may be that we just need to try and figure out a hospital bed. But the wheelchair, the dummy, the sheets, linens, pillow, all of those things we'll be able to take care of. And then the other part of this is that it does talk about what their request or what they what they say is $25 an hour to contract a nurse. And so this student, as we work together, we're trying to figure out where and how that'll work. And so that's where I've been talking with Mr. Williams about how we would come up with that funding. This year there's one student, but there are a lot of other students that are sophomores right now that have already come forward. For an exact number, there are 4 or 5 that have come in to me and said, I want to do what this student is doing. I won't say her name. I want to do what she's doing. So what do I need to do to get on track that way? So we've got them in the EMT program this year. And so there are 4 or 5 more students at least for next year. Future years, that'll just depend with this new, or just seeing this, that they don't necessarily have to be an EMT. It could open it up to even more. But it'd be a really good program. It would be something that just another offering. As you know, when a student wants to go into nursing, a lot of times that brother, he went through CNA and he was doing that on top of working and doing all these other things. But if a student can graduate now from high school using that advanced opportunities money, now they can go out and enter the workforce as a CNA while they are studying to become an RN or an LPN, getting that 4-year degree. And that's not one more thing that they have to try and maneuver with the work schedule and also with college. And so, yeah.
Do the students have to pay anything?
So the students, the course is covered through the advanced opportunities because it's a dual credit class. And so all of that is covered through that.
Can you explain advanced, what that is?
Yeah, so every student from 7th grade to 12th grade, the state gives them $4,125 to take care of any AP classes, international baccalaureate classes, dual credit classes, and then also exams. And so already there are students that take like your dual credit English, your math, EMT, history. This year that got expanded to not only government, but also US history as a government. And so all of that is taken care of. And so this IDLA class is taken care of through that advanced opportunities funding.
And so are there any classes at all they can take while they're a freshman?
Yeah, there are freshmen that take this fundamentals of health professions. They take that class.
Okay. And then sophomore?
Sophomores is when they'll take like the medical terminology. And so that fundamentals of health professions, I've encouraged freshmen, they could start it there, just because that's just your general overview to health professions, different occupations. And so while it is dual credit, it's a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but it is one that a freshman would be able to handle a lot more than your medical terminology, which in that you've got 1,500 vocabulary terms that you go through and memorize and work with. And so that one's a little more appropriate for probably a sophomore. Yep.
So you have one student who wants to do this expanded one, but how many kids do you think are in the school right now that are in the nursing program or in the, not the nursing, but the EMT?
So in the EMT, there's, I want to say there's 7 kids that are in that class right now.
Do they declare from the time they're a freshman or can they pick that up?
So they can pick it up anytime. That's where we try and encourage them to fill out the learning plan so that we can look at those numbers. And so we can say, okay, as a freshman, what are you planning to do? And that's where I would help them with and seeing, okay, so you could get this done by the time you're a junior, ride with the ambulance, senior year, do the CNA program. Or there are even students that take like dual credit anatomy and physiology. And so that is also another area that helps lead into the
so if they pick up that extra 40 hours that they have to do, they have to do that outside of all the other classes they have to take, don't they?
Yeah, so one of the things though is this IDLA class, they do get an hour on it per day. So it is an actual class here.
It's a class.
So depending on the student and how we're able to work that out, and particularly what whoever the nurse is that we're able to contract out,
right,
then they could come in during that hour and work with the student during that time. The student that is currently in this, the plan that we have right now is she is kind of a more advanced student. And so we're looking at blended days and Saturdays. And so, but the blended days from what we have should cover that. And so she'd be able to go in and do that there. So go to like 8. We figured, there's about 4 or 5 blended days, and so she'd be able to go in for about 8 hours
You're
and
talking
get that
about a
training.
semester or I mean, a try or 2 tries?
Yeah, so what it is because the class, the IDLA classes, they run on a semester base. And so it's usually August or September until January. And then it's for the A sections, and then it's January to May for the B sections. And so as I've talked to Sherry Holthouse, who's the instructor of this IDLA class, she said that she needs to have 40 hours from January to right to the beginning of March, mid-March, and then she needs to do the clinicals from March to May.
Is this where they actually go into a?
Yep, so they'll go in there and they'll have that experience being with a CNA and an RN there in the facility.
Exciting.
It is, it's really neat. Yeah.
So at this point, then, for what the district would need to provide to make this happen is we need to find a classroom to be able to set this up in and be able to find funding to contract out for an RN or an LPN. Is that correct?
Yep, and right now, like Dina Stedman, she said that even the EMT classroom, this student, she actually has multiple IDLA classes. And so she could go opposite what Mrs. Stedman has the EMT classes. And so we kind of already have the classroom that we need. It's just the funding to get a registered nurse.
It's $25 an hour for 40 hours. right?
For 80 hours.
For
So
80.
40 is
That's right.
the,
That's-
yep,
we've got
classroom,
two
and then
different ones.
40 is the skills based,
Right.
and then 40 is the clinicals.
Okay, got it.
You know, and as the school board is looking to decide whether or not this is an option, we are pretty fortunate this time where, as we're looking into this, we do have, because of the learning loss money and the ESSER monies and different things, we've had flexibility to be able to approach programs like this. And so this is something that long-term, we would still have to, like, I think we need to look and say, how do we look at this? Are there other grants out there? But in the short term, this is something that we have an opportunity to help a student this year. Like, that was why it's been brought to the board in this timely manner to be able to make that decision. But as superintendent, we do have the funds available to explore that this year and get it started.
If I could just go off of that too, people are really, like, as I went into Good Sam's, the Life Care Center, talked with Bonneville, there were a lot of people that they recognized, because I just said, this is for our rural school. I've never heard of this happening before. So we're really like learning as we go. And all of them have said, hey, yeah, that's why they invited me to that committee. And so that's one of the next things that I'm looking at is talking with the state and seeing what is it that we would need to do in order to get that funding as a CTE to pay for that on an ongoing basis, because we have the interest. And so hopefully we'll be able to get that it's not, taken, as Mr. Williams said, taken from somewhere where that money might not be there in the future. And so what do we need to do in order to get that registered nurse? And it would always be a January to May, because this is the B portion of that certified nursing class. And so it would always be just a January to May position, I guess. And so it would, and so just working with the state, but everybody has been super helpful. Everybody I've reached out to, just like, yeah, that'd be great to see your school get that, and get this program running.
Yeah. So is it possible to maybe get this going in January?
Yep.
Is that kind of the goal?
Yeah, that's what we're shooting for right now. This student already has somebody that she's talked with that is a registered nurse. And so we're just kind of waiting to see where we can go with it from there.
Good.
So right now, Madam Chair, the administration is looking for a motion to be able to approve or disapprove the health occupations program for the school year.
Okay. Is there any questions for Mr. Demar? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the floor would be open for a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the health occupations program.
Is there a second? I second that. Any other discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Been a great program moving forward.
Well, I'm excited about it, and you could tell, you know, thank you, Mr. Demar, for coming and presenting on that
And all the work you've done
and all
on
the
it.
work. And, you know, it definitely does stay true to our mission statement, small school, big opportunities, endless possibilities. And this is something that I think could really impact lives going forward. So thank you, Mr. Demar. Thank you.
Kids will take advantage of it.
Well, it also helps us along the way. We don't have to get CTE a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think this one's fairly quick.
It should be, and if it doesn't, we can always postpone it until later. So last board meeting, policy 5830P, we had a question on that one, and we did reach out to ISBA. And so Mrs. DeGrar, our board clerk, reached out to ISBA for direction with this question on, can we do more than what was requested in the policy that they gave us? And the ISBA responded with a federal code, 382.505, basically saying that we can't do anything more than that. So really, we're back to the point where the proposal from the superintendent is, I think we just make sure we're aware of that and we're following up with our drivers and we can still take action, but it's just that we can't have it in policy different than that. So my recommendation as superintendent is that we just approve policy 5830P as written because of this feedback that we got from the ISBA policy rewrite.
Appreciate Mrs. DeGraw checking into it and finding out for sure. The floor would be open for a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve policy 5830P as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, STEM and Science Department. Brought Ross.
Do I need to stand on the podium?
No, you can be right there.
Right.
Just use your
She's
teacher,
got
If I speak loud enough, I'll be
use
okay.
your teacher voice. So thank you, Mr. Packer, for coming in.
Just to give you an update on what's going on. In the science department for the STEM classes, Mr. Rogers and myself both teach a STEM class. I teach the high school, he teaches junior high. Have pretty big numbers every trimester. So I'd say most kids go through it. A lot of kids are on their second or even third time taking the class.
You can take
So-
it more than once.
You can.
Like how many kids are you talking about in one class?
Usually this try is my smallest STEM class and I have 12, I believe. And then last year I had 2 classes. One of them had 22, I think. It was really hard for my classroom to do that one. And I'll show you some pictures actually here in a
Just
second.
because your classroom is small.
Right, yeah,
Right.
and I'll show you. If you come in my classroom, if you ever look in there, it's always messy.
It's a smaller
Because
class.
there's always, I've got projects right now, I have 4 projects going in there, so each corner has something in there. So, but to go with STEM, last try, just one of the projects that we did, we took a catapult that was built here at West Jefferson in 2010, I believe, which was this structure here. We took an old structure from an old catapult and we rebuilt it, and we took it to a pumpkin chucking contest at CEI. And we actually took 4th. So it was nice, very interesting experience. Mrs. DeGraw was with us. Those 3, there's 1 student missing on there. There are 2 students were missing. They were not able to come on the Saturday because of work. So they didn't make it, but yeah, we took 4th place. I might have contested to take 3rd place, but you know, whatever. I wasn't running the tape measure, so yeah, we were pretty close.
You gotta fight harder for our kids.
Yeah, if you watch the video online, you might agree with me. So yeah, we pulled it there. It was nice. Mrs. DeGraw followed us because you can tell. Yeah, I was really nervous about this. I tried to get out of it. Mrs. DeGraw told me no. We had flags on there. It was pretty wide. It was an interesting, scary trailer to pull into town. It was fun. Right, the first underpass we went under, we were really scared. So you can go to the next one. We had a really good experience. We definitely turned a lot of heads. We really stood out. This was our catapult compared to the rest of the catapults that are there. Ours is probably 5 or 6 times bigger than everybody else's. And it was very unique. The picture on the right is actually one of the Roundies donated a log that we used to build the catapult. So it's very interesting. We learned a lot from the experience, and 2 of the students, including Cameron Sauer, wants to come back next year after he graduates and still help build another one for next year for the competition next year. So it was a very unique experience. We did move the cars, just so you know, because some pumpkins did shoot out the back side. But that was when we were first setting it up.
Wow, I'd like to see your reaction.
It was great, and we've already taken it apart. A video I can show you. But
I have video.
yeah, oh yeah, the catapult
We'll
is
show
still
you.
sitting outside. When we brought it back for the 2 weeks after that competition, we continued to make adjustments to it to get it to throw better, because only one of our 3 pumpkins shot forward. So we made some adjustments. We tried throwing different weighted objects, and it did really well. If you go back by the football field, it's sitting back there on the gravel. And from where it was sitting, with some of the stuff we threw pumpkins are probably like 8 inches to the hill. So we hit the hill with them, and yeah, it's a good experience. Project I did last year, I haven't done this one this year because it's pretty time consuming, but we did Rube Goldberg machines. So using the 6 basic simple machines, you had to build a complex machine to do a very simple task. So these are just a couple of the projects that we did. This was my biggest class. So you can tell when you look around my room, it is very, very messy. It was really hard to store all this. Every inch of my classroom had someone's project. So I mean, this wall, the back wall, side walls, right? Every single inch. Behind my TV was another group's project. So every day we pulled the TV forward so they could work on their project, and then we pushed it back again. But as far as interaction goes, I really feel like that's the best project that I've done so far, because every single kid is active with it. I mean, these 2 were seniors at the time. This project, actually, my heater broke the next week, and the steam completely ruined their project. And they rebuilt it in 2 days because they already had their idea, they had their plan. So they completely rebuilt it in 2 days after working on it for like 2 weeks. But yeah, great experience. This young man here speaks very, very limited English, but participated very well with this group in working with that project. So yeah, every single one of those projects worked really well. It was a great, great experience. Okay, same picture there. These guys, theirs was a 3-tier system. So it started here, moved over to the observation table, and then it shot a cap that went across the room and set off another spinning mechanism. I was flipping through a phone, flipping through pictures on a phone. So a lot of work for something really simple, but they were very inventive. I mean, you can see here, they actually pulled pieces and parts, which I'll talk about this in a second, out of my back class or the closet, and just tore pieces apart, rebuilt it, and yeah, just made an amazing project. It was really awesome to see that one. The one to the right, this is the Panther Olympics that we did, the torch that we had this year. I had a group of 4 students. I just put them together and said, this is what I need, come up with a design. They designed that, which doesn't look like a lot, but it was the torch that we
So the students
used.
were the ones that did the
Mhm.
Panther Olympics torch.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody was there. That
Did you guys
was,
see that?
that was amazing. I didn't know it was students.
Yep, they came up with the idea. We were safe, right? Always, that was something we were definitely cautious about. But yeah, I supplied a bunch of the parts, but the kids came up with the design, they put it together. We experimented with it a couple times, and then it worked.
Awesome.
Right, compared to my previous years. Another class we've been doing, another thing that I've been doing with my STEM classes, I tried to get them to do stop motion projects just because I'm really into technology. So this is one, I don't know if you can hit play on that. Mr. Williams.
Oh, let me pull it up on another thing.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't have to. I mean, so they made a race car video. So in this particular picture, there's a green screen back there. So they built the green screen. You can still see the border on it, but which it turned out pretty good. And then this is one of their races. They raced a little Jeep and a cow against each other, but they had it's like a 4-minute video where they just raced all sorts of different things, and they just learned how to edit videos. and do really slow motion videos. So just another one, to stay with STEM before we get to that one.
Oh, yes.
Just another project from that same group. This is a puzzle box, so it works really well. Like you can't open it very well unless you go through the specific code. There's 3 moving parts on it that have to be in the right spot. And I really don't remember which spots they are. You look inside it, so see it.
So the kids would make this.
Yeah, they made this one, they designed this one, they came up with it themselves. So there's actually magnets in here to help hold it into place. So as you lock it in, it closes and it holds pretty tight. Like right now, that one won't close because it's in the wrong spot. But that is another group's project. So and as far as creativity goes, a project they came up with on their own. I just supplied materials. Right now, we're making a t-shirt cannon because they want to have a t-shirt cannon to be able to shoot shirts up at games with. So we've been designing that. I think tomorrow we'll actually having a working prototype.
T-shirt cannon.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to any of the like professional games or they,
Oh,
and the mascot shoots shirts up into the stand?
The shirts are kind of balled up into a little ball.
we'll have fun.
Yeah. So when it's done, I'll definitely show it. We're hoping on being able to use it. But yeah, so they're hoping the one that from the research that we've gotten, it should probably only shoot 10 feet. So not very much, but it's still cool. Right, when it shoots, it fires. So, and then we're also, the one I'm kind of excited about, today we got it to work most of the way. We're building a flag that'll drop down based off of a button. So they'll push a button and the flag will drop down and then it'll retract also. And another group, very inventive group, they're making a fish feeder for my classroom. So they've got it set up. They're still in the development process, but they push a button or it's on a timer. So every day it just turns on for a second, runs food into the fish tank, and so I can do anything. So if you ever watched, I think it's Flubber, that movie, the scientist in there, right? It's Robin Williams. He has all these little tiny Rube Goldberg machines that run his house, do the basic functions for him in the morning. So kind of based the class off of that in a lot of ways when we talk about like the simple machines and stuff. So yeah, that was a good one. Mr. Rogers' class, we've been trying to get up to date. Now I couldn't get a picture of his old skeleton. I don't know if you guys ever saw that, but it was falling apart. Did he bring it? I think he brought
It
it.
in a box.
He brought it
Yeah.
box, okay.
Pieces.
In pieces. My favorite thing, and he didn't have a picture of this, is I did a taping class with him one time and I walked in and he had the knee of the skeleton hanging over his shoulder. He's like, this is how I always teach this. And he's talking about the feet and wrapping and everything. And you know, it was falling apart. It was in pieces. And I'm like, oh man, that's horrible. But he did get his new skeleton this year. I believe that foundation, I think.
Yeah,
Okay,
Ed Foundation.
okay, just making sure. So he got an amazing skeleton. I mean, those muscles insertions and all sorts of different things. So we've made a lot of updates. He uses that, I believe, almost every day. So making some advancements. There's a few things we'd like to improve in the future. We're kind of hoping maybe we can do some more improvements for next year. This is one that Mr. Rogers is really interested in. It's anatomy in clay. So it's a kit where you buy a figure, a human figure, but then you have clay. So you make all the organs and all the functions of the human body, muscles, retractions, tendons, everything. You make out of clay in different colors and you place them inside of these skeletal pieces. So like there's the back muscles, right? But you do the whole thing. I believe it's a 12-week program, but by the time you finish, you've made a complete human, not a full size, but a smaller version of a human of all the anatomy. So that's one thing that we're hoping to try and progress for the future, just to increase our students' desires in the scientific field, just because I really feel like we don't have a huge draw for science. I mean, everyone's like, oh, I love the science class, but when I talk to them, hey, what are you doing in the future? It's usually not in the scientific field at all, right?
Is that like the old biology class? What's it called now?
I'm sorry, which one?
What class is this?
Anatomy and physiology.
So it's for more juniors. seniors?
Probably junior. I think he could use it in multiple areas actually, because in my mind, I'm like, he could use it in biology too. So it would be a junior and a senior class.
That's what I was wondering if it was for biology. So that biology, like 10th grade.
And sophomores, yeah, so he could use it with sophomores too. I think, because he usually was in advanced biology class too, so he'd be able to use it in that classroom also. He does have a sample version, not a sample, I guess. It is actually the knee that he got from Mrs. Stedman, and he's been using that this year just to try and get familiar with it. The clay is that workable clay that lasts for years, so it's reusable for a long, long time.
Do you have an idea how much each of those kits cost?
So he.
To
so
create like
I
a
can speak
mini-
on that one.
Yeah.
Mini skeleton?
I have to take it too. I didn't bring it though, but yeah, it's expensive.
It's
It's
$5,000 or
nice.
$6,000.
It's a little less. So 12, we can get it for a 12-person class. We can get it for like, I think it's 4,700. But not a lot cheaper, a little cheaper. But that's for a full set. And it's something that's usable for years and years to come.
And the timeline with this is I've been with Mr. Packer and Mr. Rogers on this. You know, I wanted the science department to come in and present on it, and then I'll be gathering some information. But it'd be nice for us as a board, by timeline is by February, to be able to come to the board with a proposal on this. That way we're working with the teachers. We're not just buying curriculum because it looks cool, but to make sure that we have like talk with Mr. Guimar, make sure it fits into what we're scheduling for next year.
But we've been saying as a board for maybe a year, we want to see some improvements in science.
And this is the way to do that.
Yeah. 100% hands-on. I feel like a lot of our students are really hands-on learners. So this to me is
But
perfect.
is there a better place for your classroom than if it's so little, you can't do anything without being all over each other? Probably not.
So Monday I went to go do a lab. Mr. Rogers and I usually share his lab, but on Monday we both had planned labs the same day. So I still did mine in my classroom, and it was really bad. I had to run extension, we were using hot plates, I had to run extension cords, and yeah. So my classroom is really difficult.
You know, and it's, as you mentioned that, and I think we can talk about this on future growth, future bond projects. We're gonna be blessed with this current bond. It was a 5-year bond. And really in the next 2 years, we should start talking about what is it that the board wants to, you know, in our community. We need to start having community meetings in the next couple of years. Saying, yeah, we will have these remodel projects. We're gonna get our roof done. We're gonna get the gymnasium. We're gonna get the auditorium. Those things with this remodel and art project. But our science department is the next part. After we get the old gym done, after we get the auditorium done, it's our science departments that we need to look at.
Yeah, we've talked about in the past about new science classrooms or labs.
And if you go look in the labs, they're after. I mean, in my classroom, when I cleaned it out, I found the chemical shower is up on the shelf. It just never was put in. So I'm like, oh, I think that was important.
I think
So-
my question was for the near future, is there a better classroom that can help us out? Until we are able to add.
You know, we can reflect on that. We have Mr. Davis that's in here. We can look into that. I don't know, but here's the thing is the classroom where Mr. Packer is at has the gas lines, the Bunsen burners.
Yeah.
You know, that's the part that when you look at a real science lab, it would be hard to take.
Could you get new?
And a closet for
tables,
storage,
or
too.
Could you get new tables or?
Tables won't create more space. It's
You're just telling me how long everything.
honestly.
Mrs. Perkins, I did move my desk this year. I'm trying a different, one of my goals is to try a different seating arrangement to see if the room would feel larger. It feels a lot better, but if you walk by my room, you can see
The desk has
there's
to
not a lot
go.
of room. Yeah.
So kick out the desk and kick out all the students.
Okay.
I have a closet too where I store a lot of the stuff, but the network's in there also. So, I mean,
Okay.
because I do have quite a bit, the storage space is a big thing for me too, just for,
And I don't know, I'm not trying to age anybody, but you're a West Jefferson graduate. Was that the
Are we
science,
still in the same old room?
was that the same science room when you were in school?
I think so, yes.
it was in mine or right next door, because Mrs. Birds has a vent too also, so the two classrooms both have vents.
Yeah.
So I think they were both designed as the same.
We will look into that. I don't know if we have an answer directly. If I haven't thought about, could we move it somewhere? But when I think about remodeling the classroom, especially if it's a science classroom, it makes sense to build a new one, to start all the way over.
And make it big enough
Well,
to begin with.
Yeah.
that's true, but
Maybe
Yes.
in the meantime.
5
we could
years
have
down the line,
storage.
these kids are all gone.
But in the meantime, we could look at things like these types of programs to
right.
be able to increase it. Well,
As far as the future goes, just different things that we've discussed. And then I've discussed with the gentlemen that are doing our network, the fiber optics, they've been here a few times. They also have a side business they do, and it's called Computers Then. They do traveling presentations where they just demonstrate different things they sell, but I've also gotten to talk to him a few times about 3D printers. For me, in the future, what I'm looking forward to and hoping to be able to get into next year is some work with 3D printers. So I just put these on here just because, I mean, we do have a 3D printer, but it's just a small version. It was kind of the sample one to see how to do everything in the first place. So my goal is next year is to try and figure out to get a bigger, a much larger one, just to get kids more familiar with making measurements, building things from scratch, editing. My STEM class, I didn't bring anything for that, but this last week we just finished the hour of code activity, so we built video games, and then I'll have to build them plan. But my future goals.
Did you say how
This
to
year for
make
sure.
video games?
Yes, they did the programming for video games. So they use different programming codes like Python to design a video game and make it themselves.
Really, what class is
So
that?
Hour of Code,
How?
that's my STEM class. They just do it
What's
in my
your
STEM
STEM
class, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a fun activity. I did it last year too. It's always the second week of December, I believe. And, yeah, it's a great program. It's free to everyone. That's why I like it. But yeah, you can log on, and this year they added 10 new games. So one of the students built a Super Mario Brothers game that was amazing because in Super Mario Brothers you're supposed to collect coins. Well, he reprogrammed it so every time you collected a coin, it killed you. So in order to win the game, you had to jump in the water, which would normally kill you. You have to go around all the coins and get to the final coin, which was the flag, like in the original game. And when you jumped up and grabbed the last one, it killed you. So he's like, did I pass the game? I'm like, well, you designed the game, so yes. I mean, yes, it made me really mad and frustrated because I played like 6 times and I still lost, but whatever. But and one interesting thing that Mr. Rogers and I have talked about, I put that picture on there specifically just because we talked about this molding and play activity, and I brought up, I said, you know what, if I moved into that motion of being able to do 3D printing, like this is heart, we could print a heart out, which is a pre-programmed design already that we could just get online for free. So like we could print that out, and then they could talk about the heart chambers, they could talk about balance, everything, because we could print it off. So just like that's my future plans. I just wanted to point that out.
Yep.
Right. And then I just brought this just because it's a nice little sample of something it's 3 or 4 pieces that were put together, but it's something that CSI and Mr. DMAR. But which way's gotta go. There's marbles in there, so they come out and then they go down when you spin the little mechanism. But I have myself, I really like Jeeps. So my brother-in-law printed me off a Jeep, 3D printed me a little Jeep to put together. So it'll be about that big in the end, but you have to piece all the parts together, and everything was printed on the 3D printer. So one thing I'd really like to get into in the future.
We don't have a 3D printer.
So Mr. Hansen actually has one. He has one very similar to this. It's just a little smaller. So I think the name plaques that he makes for this school, he makes them on there. But I think it only has like a 5-inch platform or something like that. So it only does small dots. But it's a new technology, obviously, that's really, I think is grasping a lot of the kids. I know the reason why I'm mostly interested in it is because my son and his friends are in a class and they've been designing things and making things at his school, and I'm like, that's awesome. So I've been trying to get into that myself. But I think there's one more on there.
One more.
Is that it?
That's
Okay.
slide.
The other thing I've been experimenting with and playing with just trying to move us more into the future. I've been trying to incorporate a digital notebook for my classrooms. So the kids, since every single kid has a Chromebook, I've been doing all their notes and everything they do, their activities, into a digital notebook where they have to build a platform and put their notes and everything, the different activities we do in class, scientists that we study. This one's a lab. The different things that we do are just, this is the first class I've tried this with. I'm trying it with my typing class right now, and then I'm trying it with my physical B class, my physical science B class. So it's working and just learning a lot of, I hate to say this, but how far behind our students are with technology and understanding how to use them with the computer programs. So it's been really nice, but I think that's one of their steps that's moving us a lot farther forward in computer sciences, I guess, is getting them to understand more. Now you guys have this computer, it's not just for video games and getting on Google. Right? You can do a lot more with it.
Thank you for
You
coming
bet.
in and speaking to the board and update the board.
Yep.
Board have any
Sure.
questions?
Show us how that ball deal works.
So this is a Newton's cradle, and I love to show it and off to everyone. I have a newer version that I bought. It's just one of the desktop versions. But if you look at this one really close, it actually has etched in right here, West Jefferson School District 1965. So it's been here for quite a while. It has some major issues. It doesn't look like it's supposed to anymore. It loses its momentum. It's pretty rickety. It's fallen apart a few places. Like you can tell, this one's down a little too far, but it doesn't work like it used to. It's one of those things. We've just been constantly trying to update the supplies that we have. Some of the jars, and I still haven't like come by and look at them. I have a hard time letting some things go. But there's some jars that I don't even have a clue what was in them. Coach Sawicki told me he put them on the top shelf when he started, and I took them down. So yeah, they just have some really cool crystals in them. So I like to show them to the kids. I'm like, look at that, it's so awesome. But they're just unique. And then there's probably 5 or 6 different items in the back room I still pull out just to show the students. I mean, science has changed, but still there's a lot of things that have been around for a long time that still work. But just trying to make things better.
You're doing some awesome things. in
I
there.
hope so.
Exciting stuff.
Mr. Williams, I'd like to see a wish list. Prices and see what we're up against as far as.
See if we can
becoming
afford some
more
of these
modern,
science
becoming more
materials.
We'll do that.
You guys are nice.
Bell, I'd like to talk to you.
So last school board, I'll start, Mrs. Bell, as you're coming up. I did have a proposal without Mrs. Bell here. My proposal hasn't changed, but I just wanted to invite Mrs. Bell in case there are any questions, so she could explain a little bit more. So this was the proposal that Mr. Davis is Math 1, 2, 3, and I hope I have the right one up here, Mrs. Bell. Is that the right one?
Yes.
And so this board has already heard a little bit about it, but I just wanted to be able to invite you to answer any questions or share anything else. We'll just turn the time over. Thank you, Mrs. Bell, for coming over for a few minutes. And so I'll turn the time over to you.
I don't know exactly what all you talked about, so I'll just briefly, this is a dual credit class through CWI. It goes towards like if they were gonna get an associate's degree for people who are going into welding, mechanics, the trade type things, this would be their math requirement. Besides they would still have to do a mechanic math or a welding math or something, but this would give them their general math that they would have to do to get their associate's degree. It covers a lot of different, it's called Math in the Modern Society. And so it covers a lot of different real world type things. I just wrote a few things down so I could remember what to tell you. There was number patterns estimating a cost, like a grocery list or something, and you would estimate just how much is that gonna cost me at the store. You could figure out the depreciation on a car or your mortgage payment. You look at someone's gross income, their taxable income, their adjusted gross income. We kind of look at some stuff that you do in the real world. There was looking at retirement accounts and how much is gonna accumulate in your account over time, given that information. There's some basic math stuff too. They still have to solve some equations and graph and stuff, but there was a lot more stuff that applied to a normal person's regular life kind of thing that was in there.
Those were things that I know last month when we brought that up, that.
We wanted real world life,
Mhm.
like
And this,
situations.
and Mrs. Bell, this proposal is to, currently we have a program, the Alex program, which is more at your own pace, at your own time. And we know that sometimes those self-paced classes, they can be good for kids who are very motivated, but also for kids that don't have that motivation. We don't have that teacher interaction. This would take place of that, at least as we're proposing it. And the reason why we want to talk about it this early is it gives us time to, one, of course, get approval from the board, but two, be able to financially plan for the purchase of this program and get it into the registration process as we come into the spring. And so, questions for Mrs. Bell?
So tell me the path in math that a person takes when they take.
They would still do an algebra 1 and a geometry. We're still kind of deciding if they have to do algebra 2. Technically, you don't have to do algebra 2 before you take this, but we don't want someone to take it too young because it's a dual credit class, and so maturity level does play a part into it. So they would still do their graduation requirements before they took this class. And possibly algebra 2 first. We haven't.
So the person starts in the freshman class with algebra 1.
Mhm.
Then they take geometry the
Yes.
next. They take that all year.
So
Yes.
is geometry like a sophomore
Yes,
class?
yes.
And then
It
for
could,
those that are more into math, they might take algebra 2 and then they would take this. They have to take 4, don't
hey,
they? I mean,
It was just changed early this year, and so
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what you.
I would have to look at it. We
Yeah.
looked at the process of that. So this is, again, one that the seniors usually
Yes.
would take.
Yes.
So it fits into our plan. This
Yeah.
isn't gonna change any of the plans. It's just
Okay.
the Alex program was the one that we had in that spot. But as Mrs. Bell's looked at it and shared with administration and come back and shared with me, it's not the best program for what we want our kids to have. And so that's why I really appreciate Mrs. Bell as math department chair to come in and say, wait a minute, and then go talk to administration, Mr. Davis.
I
And-
remember
and
the
get started.
conversation we had in board meeting when we were wondering what to do for CTE or for.
Yes,
Yes.
and that's what I really liked about this. When they offered it to me last spring, I thought we have left that out for quite some time, and this would fill that in.
Good that you came up with that so fast. I didn't think we'd see any more about that for a while, so I'm great.
Well, and that just goes to show, like, we have Mr. Packer coming in and Mrs. Bell.
Good teachers.
Like, this is what is going on in our faculties. Our teachers are constantly looking at ways, how can we improve what we're doing? And that's why I think a lot of us went into education initially, because we have a passion for it, but we also know that we improve. And that's the part about being a lifelong learner. We've heard that term, we as administration and as teachers, we're looking at ways to improve. But I like the board, I love these table of subcontents, that there's the different things.
Real life is practical.
And the kids, instead of sitting and saying, hey, what can I do to put the computer on to make it look like I'm spending hours here? And then they come and take the test and know that they didn't do anything, but they put the hours in. This would be great.
These projects
Topics.
are really for seniors, it looks to me like, because they're not gonna be worried about.
I don't think I think we'd be mindful of that. You could have some advanced students that
do
that might be able to, but But Ms.
Is
Bell,
it-
wouldn't you agree, you think that a majority of the students will be seniors that
Yes,
take
And does
this?
it take, how many tries is it?
Two. It'll be a 3-credit class.
So I think I'm excited about that, and I know ballpark when we looked at, was it around 7,000?
Yeah, I think it was just a little bit over, but I can't.
But, you know,
Some graduation requirements. Is that what you went to get?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. DeGraw.
graduation requirements. So, I don't know, does the board have any other questions for Ms. Bell? You had the easier ones, really just to make sure that the board's aware of that, so as we get into January and February, and they bring this up for a vote, that the board feels like they've had a chance to look at all of it.
What was this called?
This was, again, Mrs. Bell wasn't.
It's Math 123, the college one, but it's college in modern society, or math in the modern society, I'm sorry. Math in the modern society.
It's like 9 credits.
You know, what I love about what Mr. Guimar brought in, we've talked about two different things today that we are focusing on. I don't want to say, you know, AP classes or higher level learners or those kids. And so a lot of times people think we're only focusing in on the low kids, but this is something, as we have modern or dual credit classes, you know, those are things that we're doing a lot towards that. And again, the mission statement again, you know, we as a district came up with a mission statement that really is driving what we're doing. And so thank you, Mrs. Bell, for being able to do that.
Who would teach that class?
I would.
Well, and right now, don't our 8th graders, they have the opportunity to take algebra.
So they could take this class if they were a junior that it worked out with, and then they still could take college algebra and trig as a senior if they chose to do it that way, if they decided they wanted to do that. This isn't a replace this, make a choice. You can
Right.
still go on with other stuff, yeah.
It's wonderful.
It's exciting. Mrs. Bell, thank you. Is there any more questions for Mrs. Bell?
Keep up the good work.
Thanks for coming over.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Okay. Sure. Slide 2.
I think so. All right. I just want to, you know, say thank you to my teachers. I know they've left, the teachers and counselors. Again, great staff. It was great staff here. And our kids are fortunate to have such dedicated professionals. 5.2, this is just an update on the trustee zone equalization. And so we are so close to being able to submit this again to the state board. So close. And so these are just the drafts. We included the trustee code zones from Idaho. Excuse me, I've been talking for a couple hours. Sometimes I'm tripping over my words. So Idaho Code 33313 talks about the trustee zones and the requirement. Just put that on there in case anybody listening to board meetings can go back and access this from our board docs. But from the proposed zones, this is what it would look like on the latest ones. We reached out. This one is not final. We did see that here on the right-hand side. This is not accurate. We did, when we changed some of the zones, those numbers didn't change.
Have we shown this in board meeting before?
I believe I showed it
Last
last time. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that people understand why we're.
Yes,
doing
so this was from last board meeting. So if you missed our last board meeting,
Census.
We did have to make some slight adjustments.
Yeah.
To the map.
and so again, this matches the legal descriptions. Some of the changes that are going to be proposed. Zone 3 will grow a little bit to the north to be, and zone 2 will take a little bit there. So a lot of you actually changes a little bit. Some of it goes into 2, some of it goes into 3. And then there is going to be, just as you look at all these little lines, that's out of Mud Lake. Those are called census blocks. I don't know who wrote those, but one of the requirements is that we're not supposed to split census blocks, but nobody lives there. And so So we were trying to find ways just to make it,
Census blocks if we have a reason for it.
and so they just don't want you to go in and split a block to try to manipulate and say, we want people to vote for this political party or this political party. That's the whole thing that they're trying to do, but this is just, this is not for school. I mean, that was one of the questions that Mrs. Perkins, you had last time. This is not school zones, only trustees. And it's gonna happen for 2 votes over the 4 years, and then we'll redo it in 2030. And so 1900 North is going to be the division line between zone 5 and zone 4. And then then 2250 down to the census block to Highway 33 and back around. And so it hasn't changed. These are the legal descriptions. These have been reviewed from Jefferson County, and they were able to catch some of the things and say, no, rewrite it this way to make sure that it meets the legal requirements of.
They told us the wording to use if we're following a street that doesn't actually go on.
It's extended.
So,
Yeah, so there's just different parts of it, and this is what it will look like at the end. Our highest population zone is 465, which will still be Montague, but by doing that, they're so close to being, they're only within 3.87% difference. Whereas I believe in the 2010 census, we had a couple that were 7% different.
I think 8 are
8 was the highest. It has to be below 10% to be legal. So I just wanted to bring that up for discussion. As soon as we get the final map finished from Jefferson County, we'll get that sent into the state board.
Any questions, comments on that? Okay. Move on to the RFQ.
Well, RFQ, we are going to put out an RFQ for an architect for the bond projects. That's something that will be going out this next week. That process will allow us to be able to finalize it before the next board meeting in January. And so just a heads up to the school board that we will be putting one out. The architect will be coming in only for remodel projects, specifically the gym and the auditorium, since we'll be looking at that. This is not an architect to come and decide on new projects. I know we talked with Mr. Packer in here. This architect will only be working on the auditorium in the high school. However, when we move into that stage of discussions moving forward, both the architect and the construction management team can help with those future projects as well.
So I guess that's my question is, the construction management team doesn't have their own architects?
No,
Okay, so that's 2 separate.
it's 2 separate. They work with
So
multiple
one
ones
designs it and one
Yep.
sees it through.
and double checks it and sees it through. And so that's something that we'll look into.
some construction management companies do have their own architects, some do not. The one that we've chosen is not.
So at this time, that's what we'll look at.
Bond projects.
Right, this is more just discussion with the board as we will start meeting with our with our construction manager, and look at the projects. What's feedback from the board? When we ran the bond, we were looking to have an upgraded PA system and sound system. Those things are in place. I've been able to go visit a school in Bliss and look at theirs. I have a meeting set where we'll take Mr. Davis and the board member to Grace in early January to be able to go look at their system. So really what the discussion is there's the audio portion to these programs, and there's also a video portion. And the school I went and looked at after the Idaho Superintendent Network over in Bliss, they only had the audio. The Grace School District has the video and audio, and I just wanted to see it in action and see what it looked like. But when I talk about video, that means that we have the capability of putting audio and video, which is both for instruction, safety, what in classrooms, audio only, or do we couple audio and video? What are your thoughts as a board? Because really this is gonna be like I will get feedback from teachers, I will get feedback from administration. I'm open to hear reasons, pros and cons for it. But at the end of the day, it's this board that ultimately decides what you want to see in yours.
Are you getting feedback from the teachers,
You know,
what they kind of want?
I haven't had a chance to send out a survey asking them, like, this is the time that we're going to do that. I know that when I mentioned audio and then I implemented video, I had some mixed responses. I had some people thinking, oh, great, you're gonna spy on me. And I had other people saying, we should have them in the classroom. We're a public school. This business isn't just me being in my classroom. And I've had some people say, if there are people that don't want it in the classroom, why do they not want it in the classroom? You know, and so I've seen both sides. I have some that are like, no way, don't you dare put one in there. But should it be, at the end of the day, is that a teacher's decision? Or is that a decision, if it's coming in for safety for that? And that's the thing is, I think we should be mindful always to get feedback. We should be mindful to always get feedback from people and see what they are thinking and why they're thinking it. But if the reasons aren't able to come in and say, you know what, my room is safer without a camera. And they have that conversation. I don't know. So I want thoughts, because it's really, I know I've been called a dictator more than once the last couple of months, but again, it's one of those things that, like, the purpose of the audio system is to increase safety. That allows better communication back to the office. There are emergency response buttons that go in, messages are sent.
So they're not, nobody is objecting to the audio.
No one is, so the audio is going in for sure.
Right.
It's just whether,
The video.
it's just whether or not, how, like, as we're coming through to do that, how much more do you want? So that's where the discussion is at.
Aside from the safety with the audio is the learning loss also, because a student can hear no matter where they are in the room with the speakers.
Yeah, both the audio and video can be coupled with that. So on one hand, if we're looking at what are the pros and cons of a video in a classroom? Like,
Pros, definitely, if you ever have a dispute over what a teacher said or didn't say to.
Yeah, you have a record.
So there's that, and the other thing is it just might, somebody that didn't feel confident, may not want people, at will, to be honest with you.
Mrs. DeGrom.
That's the only con. Might be more.
I think there would be teachers that would be worried. And again, it always comes back to trust. Like what,
Confidence in themselves. If you're not feeling too confident, if you know somebody's gonna come and be at your classroom, you can really.
Well, are there restrictions as to when the video would be on? So let's say a teacher's on lunch and they're in their classroom. Is that their private space during that time? Does the camera go off that time? Is the camera on the entire day? Is it recording every move they make in the classroom? Those are, I mean, those may be questions that might come up.
that's something I could definitely ask the districts that have them in there. That have already done that.
I guess maybe that's why you have an employee lunchroom.
Without a camera.
Yeah.
So, I think it's going to make people more mindful of what they say. Because conversations that happen in the classroom are no longer private conversations.
cell phones.
Well, and here's the thing though, is when students have cell phones, because there's times where teachers have been videoed saying different things.
Yeah.
And I know there was one public one in Utah at the beginning of the year where that teacher lost her job over that. But if they wouldn't have had cameras, what would that have looked like? The kids go home, nobody had, and they say the teacher's saying this, and it's their word against the teacher.
Yeah.
And if teachers are breaching code of ethics with their conversations, we don't want those teachers in our district.
So that's number 2 right there, is too much stress on the teacher. That would be the other comment. Too much stress, knowing that every word you say is gonna be recorded.
But do you get used to it?
Maybe,
You know, is it just because it's a change and change is hard for some?
probably, everybody always,
It's a protective
Worries
measure.
at
I mean,
first.
it's no different than us being videoed during these meetings. It's uncomfortable. Sure, I'll be honest, we're on video all the time. But there's a purpose for it, and I think in the classroom, there's a purpose for it. So,
I was just listening to cons, I don't
Yeah.
know if that's.
I think it would add stress, the other places where body cameras in law enforcement, I really haven't even asked my sibling what his thought is, but I know when he goes out, they're on. Do you have a family member, have they ever made mention on anything like that, or like, I'm gonna quit?
Absolutely. He's just making.
Pro or con, like,
At first, he was very con. He thought, "What am I doing?" But it has actually been saved him several times.
So there you go.
And then I go back and watch video and before court and go, oh yeah, now I remember. So it's actually been a positive thing.
because right now that I just want to look at that con and we're looking at it through the eyes of administrator out to get the teacher. And what can we do to protect ourselves from the big bad administrator coming in and trying to just clean house and fire everybody? But we're missing the whole point of if we have kids who are gone from school, there are ways that video can be recorded and students can watch lectures. If a teacher wants to say, how am I doing on my presentation today? They can go back and watch it themselves and say, oh wow, do I really do that every single time? Am I only talking to this side of the classroom? Or, they can go back without
I
that.
think being in the classroom, you're thinking of all those times that things didn't go very well.
Right.
Or those times when I got noisy and you're trying to bring them back, or
Yeah.
in a teacher's mind, they're gonna be thinking, that's what they're gonna see all. I'm gonna be laid bare.
Are you gonna be sitting in your office watching them teach?
See, but they're gonna have that perception at first. Maybe they'll get used to it, but I'm just saying as a teacher, that's the first thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah. Because I think it's fair to say that teachers can have that in your mind,
Mhm.
but it's also fair to say, on the flip side of that, what's the other argument? What are you doing that you don't want anybody to see?
Well, it's not that, it's that day when it's unexpected. You have-
And that's where I think that
And I'm
comes,
not arguing.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
pointing this out.
I think that's where it comes back to trust again, though. Yeah, you could have an administrator that's like, oh, I'm just gonna go out there and I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna cut this here and cut this here, but there's still a due process that has to be done with teachers. If a teacher has something that they need to work on, they have their due process. You can't just take one snippet of it and say, oh, boom, you're fired. But here's the thing. What if there is an inappropriate thing that does happen? What if there is a teacher that's allowing kids to vape in classrooms? What if there is a time where teachers are allowing them to do things that are inappropriate? Like, I think we need to protect kids more than we protect teachers if we had to choose between the two. In a perfect world, I'd love to blend it and say we're all protected the same. I would love that. But if I do something outside of the code of ethics, I should be fired. I should. And so,
and it may be a reason for people to improve how they're teaching in the classroom.
I'm not gonna lie, I think it will cause anxiety though. I agree with you. I think it will.
Well, maybe just to start with, and then they can learn to use it as a tool to improve their performance.
I really would like to see a survey. I'd like to see the results.
You already said that, right? Yeah, I think the survey would be helpful, but I think the teachers need to know that the survey is just information to help the board make the decision. I don't think it should be, hey, guys, you know, it's a pop, you're voting on it, because they don't have the responsibility to have to weigh the safety concerns of kids. You know, and in that survey, some of them might take that survey going, hey, yeah, for the safety of the kids, I'm more comfortable with it. But others might be going, I'm not really comfortable with it. And should that be the reason why a board goes away from that? I guess that's gonna be up to you guys on that decision.
Did you ever put video in one classroom and not another at a teacher's request?
I guess it comes back down to the question, should the teacher have the ability to make that decision? I think if we put cameras in the district, it's either all or nothing. That's just kind of, as we're discussing it out there, I don't think we say,
Yeah.
because
Can't pick and choose.
that would be hard for me to defend. Let's say that teachers did get to pick and choose who put cameras in. I have a parent come in and they have a complaint against said teacher who didn't have the camera. That put, as administration, I can't protect the teacher or help the parent resolve that situation. And so that's a good question though. I think that's why we're having these discussions, because it's not voted on yet. This is just,
I'm interested to see what it would do for student behavior. I'm curious if you could just put a dummy camera in, just.
That's really a good
But it has to be,
point.
I mean, you have to post it, that there's recording, just like you did on the doors, don't
yeah,
you?
and that same posting would work for everything.
So that's a good point you made, because I'm thinking from the teacher's side of things. But if maybe the teachers or students knew they were on camera, and
Never
that could
mind.
be shown to their parents at any time. Or could it?
Oh, it could. If there was a theft in a classroom, a camera could go back and see if an item was taken from a desk or a teacher's desk, and it could be used for that. And parents would come in and say, well, you're just trying to pick on my kid. Well, here's the camera with it. You know, and a camera would be able to, going back to the students having cameras, so we already do have cameras in classrooms, but the students own them. And so I think there are situations where students could come in and try to catch a teacher. Let's get teacher so-and-so in trouble right now. And so if we're gonna get teacher so-and-so in trouble, I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna start doing this and this. You stand back over here and you record this interaction, and we'll watch teacher blow their top, say something, you know, get them over the top on something. But then the video that comes out is only that portion of the teacher, you know, and so that's what they take to administrators and say, hey, school board administrators, look, this teacher was out of line. Whereas if we had the whole thing, we could go back and possibly see the setup. And that will probably protect, I think cameras will protect employees more than it would harm them. I really do. But yeah, you have to walk around and say, okay, maybe I should check ourselves a little bit more. I think we do, we're on camera on all these meetings.
I think moving forward, yeah, ask them, see what they say, see where we're at, maybe it's a non-issue.
You know, and even if it is an issue, I think that just makes us have to make a
Well,
decision on what we still.
Yeah,
feel
we're
is
gonna
best.
have to decide which way we wanna go.
Well, this would be a good time for parents to come back. I can't think of parents that would say, don't put a camera. From a parent perspective, the two of you that that are parents.
Are you comfortable with it?
Can you think of
As a parent?
Can you think of a time where a parent might not like it?
I don't think anybody would be like, would want to be on video if something embarrassing happened and it was brought to light. That's the only thing I can think of.
Right.
But
So don't put it on Facebook on repeat.
Correct.
Someone falls down.
Well, it's all gotta stay in-house, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
there's security. So if it's done with the right intent, I think it's fine. So.
That's
Something to think about though.
I can hear the statement from some.
Mhm.
Big brother is watching.
Brothers coming in.
now, if they own one of these,
He's
Big
already
brother's
there.
already here.
he's already hearing, like,
Yeah.
hello, China. It's like, I don't know, it's one of the things that so do we fight, but I guess it goes back to, we'll have the audio portion. Again, we haven't selected the company. We have two different companies that we'll be looking at on that. We just want to see which one best fits our needs for safety. The cameras will be the second part, say, do we go that
Yeah.
route as well?
Isn't that added quite an expense or,
It's more,
yeah.
yeah, the camera system does make it quite a bit more, but you do save on installation. And we're using it, if we have the money to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking with one teacher yesterday about the audio portion of it. And this teacher's comment was, if you do it, go all out and get the best instead of just trying to piecemeal it. He's like, he said we made really good progress on the last couple of times, but we were trying to take old systems, combine it with new systems and just kind of make it work. Where this would be making it all a new system. Going that route.
This is part of the bond.
So this is part of the bond. There is an option that we might be able to use some of the ESSER or
That's what I'm
learning,
saying, right, yeah.
which would allow for more bond projects to be,
Mhm.
you know, enhanced, whether that's auditorium or other places. So we have flexibility that we didn't know we were going to have when we ran the bond. Because when we ran the bond, we had ESSER 1. By the time the bond passed, we ended up with ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. And so again, but one of the reasons why the ESSER monies could work for that is the COVID impact. You could say that wearing masks with the speaker systems allow kids to hear. And so that would be an allowable use of the ESSER money. Having kids being remote and having a camera in the classroom, that could be an allowable use for the ESSER monies. And so we have flexibility with that, and it's just, but at the same time, we're still trying to hold back and see if there's going to be any discretionary cuts this year and getting us through that next couple of years. And so that's where yes, we have the ESSER money available, but there are just a few things as we look at our overall budget. But those are good questions, and that's why I wanted to bring this discussion up to the board, because really it's gonna come down to, you know, that's why I want to put these on the discussion times, because it's a free time to express our thoughts, and those that are listening at home and take this, if they have comments or concerns, this would be a great time to reach out to board members, reach out to me as superintendent.
And I think lastly, was the blended days.
All right, so I did do a little write-up on some blended days. There have been some questions that have come up in the community recently about blended days. And there's no new information in this. This is just a repeat of information to be able to just make sure that, you know, as a board, we have a chance, you guys have a chance to give me information, directive, however you want to look at it. And so with this discussion that we have on the board meeting, first off, I think there's a misunderstanding on why the district chose to use blended days this last year. If we start with the why on a lot of the decisions, and maybe we missed reinforcing this why, that when we understand the why, we get that the outcome or where we're moving towards it. And so, I'm just gonna read through some of this. So the development of the current blended days came from conversations about providing interventions for students and giving teachers a way to ensure that students can meet academic standards. So the blended days came up. So we know that research, like, why are we even looking at this? Research does show, John Hattie's research, that a response to intervention model is one of the top measures to help students learn. And so all of this is not just like, hey, what's a fun idea that we can do? We have to have intervention. And so 2 years ago in our 2020-21 school year, well, 3 years ago, I'll start with my first year at the district. In my first year of the district, the high school had an intervention period. The junior high did not. The reason why the high school had an intervention period, they called it mentoring intervention, it's the same thing, was to give kids a chance to get caught up, learn, teachers to intervene with the kids. When I first came on, I looked at that this first year, there was a problem because the junior high and high school shared teachers, they were not on the same schedule, junior high didn't have that. So after year one, we combined the high school and junior high schedules because we share students between back and forth, and we kept the intervention period or the mentoring period in place for 30 minutes. We went throughout that school year and I listened to teachers. I had observations of my own as I watched what was going on in the school. I want us to be able to utilize the time, and teachers and administration both felt that it wasn't not as efficient with our time when we had that intervention period. So it just so happened that the teachers came back with feedback saying they didn't like the 30-minute intervention. Also, kids weren't taking advantage of it because they just used it as a break. Some of the kids, and we might have had a small percentage, the kids that would go in and they would do their homework, I get that they were ones that really benefited from it, but a lot of them were not. And so the blended day idea actually came from a teacher meeting. I remember it was held, Mr. McDonald was the teacher, one of the high school teachers. She said, can we not do something to help kids? Can we have a blended day where we can bring kids in? I came to the board in that board meeting in November and I asked, can we do this? And the teachers thought it was great. I had teachers come back and say, that day is better than 30 minutes every single time. And that got my wheels going, saying, okay, well, let's keep looking at this. It just so happened that during the same time, the district was considering either a 4-day calendar or the hybrid 5-day calendar, which we're on. The school board voted on the 5-day calendar. And so once the calendar was set, that didn't mean that the conversation about blended days didn't just magically disappear, because we were still doing a 5 or the 30-minute period during the day. And so that's when I came back to the school board and discussed it in April, and we voted on it in May to look at that. So if anybody is watching this, they can come down to the action item that was from the May 20 meeting, where this school board voted to allow blended days for intervention.
Who voted for it again?
I think that one was unanimous on it. And so when we look at the whole purpose of this was talking about mentoring or intervention. And when we had the 30 hours, or excuse me, the 30 minutes per day, there was this total of 77 hours. Or 4 times per try, we're dedicating 60 hours with a different amount. So when you look at the scope of a school year, those 17 hours less that weren't being used efficiently and effectively are now going back into teacher instruction. So our teachers actually gained more time in the classroom for daily instruction, which has been also another positive thing by having the blended days. But by research shows that we shouldn't abandon an intervention model. And so when we gave the time back to the teachers, we have to have a plan in place, and that's where the blended day plan came. That's the why behind why we chose to use blended days. I know there's been some confusion of people thinking that it was the superintendent trying to sneak in a 4-day calendar and fool the school board. that I snuck in a 4-day school week, but it's intervention that we were trying to put into it. And so the next question is, when we have this, well, how are students selected to come to these blended days? So there's 4 reasons. There could be others if teachers want to, but either students are not meeting academic standards outlined by their teachers. That might be missing assignments. We're hoping in the future that it's more standards-based directed. We know that we're moving towards standards. Some teachers teach standards and report them a little bit differently than others. But we want our students to be able to come to that. If they have excessive absences or tardies, they might be invited to come to it. The teacher might just determine that somebody needs extra intervention. But here, the first 3 are more intervention. This next one is extension. It's can provide additional time for project-based learning. Our projects like Mr. Bird's welding class, these are times that kids can come in. And this is where we need help from parents to also recognize that this is not just an assignment-driven day that, oh, you're missing assignments, come in. How are they doing with their learning? So any student may attend school in person during a blended day. Parents choose to have students either work on learning assignments at home or here. It's whatever works for you or your family with that. But all students are required to complete learning assignments, whether they're at school or at home on these days. So it's not a free day. And a question that did come up, are the blended days just dummy days? And this is one that, as a superintendent, I purposely wanted to put this in there to say, no, they're not dummy days. And the assumption that these blended days are dummy days or calling our students dummies, that's insulting and very disrespectful. It's disrespectful to our students, our teachers, and our community. And as a district, here's one thing that I will not apologize that we're thinking outside the box on ways to help kids. That's what we're here to do. And so we know that we've had some parents not like blended days. I get that. I understand that some would rather go back to the other way. And I've had a couple parents, just to be fair, come and say, well, my kid feels dumb because you asked them to come to school on that day. So I get that, but here's what I will put out there and share. If our students are feeling like they are dummies because they are invited to come to a blended day, then we need to do a better job as teachers, parents, and community members to change this mindset. Being educated is not a punishment. There is not a punishment to come and have help. Like, we live in the greatest country in the world. I've lived in a third world country for a couple of years. And I think we as parents need to remember and let our kids know it is a privilege to come to school. I know we're not perfect here. I know that we can probably do things better at different times and provide different things. But our kids have a chance to come and learn to read, to learn math, to learn science. They're in an environment where this group tries to keep them safe every single day as much as possible. And we're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to keep them safe. And we spend thousands and thousands of dollars to educate them. We should not look at that. So if that's the case, if your kid is feeling that they are dumb because they have to come and look, change the conversation and say, I am so glad you get to go do that. This is not a punishment. School is not a punishment. And when we say, yeah, stay home because I don't want you to do that, we are missing an opportunity. We cannot do our small school, big opportunities, endless possibilities, unless people want to take advantage of those opportunities. We can't do that. And so please help us encourage our students instead of tearing them down for having a chance to grow academically. Our goal as a district is to help our students be successful, which includes increasing academic achievement. One measure that critics use to say that public schools, including West Jefferson, is that we have low performing standardized test scores. You'll hear that all the time. Providing intervention for those students on a day like blended day is one way to address that deficiency. It's not a day off, it's a day to be strategic and focused on that. We can go on and on about, okay, standardized test scores, the only measure to do that. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. That's the one that's advertised out. Those are the ones, it's a 1-day snapshot. If we wanted to see how we are as human beings, and if we think we're being successful in life, and we take one test 1 day, and that's what's gonna be advertised for everybody else, you know what? I might be having a bad day. And if I'm having a bad day that day, I'm not gonna test well. And that's how I'm gonna be categorized for the next year. These blended days allow us to address kids where they're at all the way through, regardless of it. So what has been the feedback? I understand that not everyone has liked it. I've heard a couple people say, but it's overwhelmingly been positive, like overwhelmingly. It's not even close right now with that. Teachers, overwhelmingly. If there are teachers that are going out and saying, well, I just don't really like those blended days. The teachers need to come to me with a better idea for intervention. End of story. Same with community members. Whether you're a parent or a community member, it's okay for somebody to have an opinion who doesn't have kids here in school. It's okay. They're paying taxes. They're paying taxes. They should have a comment on that. But I would love for people to come and have this conversation with me on the why, and this would be a good reason if it doesn't fit into your schedule to come and visit with the superintendent. I haven't had anybody call me directly to give me feedback on what they would do differently to address the kids, but this board knows that I'm not afraid to change if something comes and it fits within what we're doing in our strategic plan, with what we're doing with our mission statement, and if it follows what research is showing. It's one of those things when we look at the measure of blended days, I think there's going to be a lot of results that come back based on individual kids. Some kids will look at this and say, I'm not going to go to school. I'm going to skip out on that. And if they call it a dummy day, shame on them. Because they're basically just criticizing our country that's trying to provide them a free education. Like that's the part that's really frustrating about that. But if that's their choice, that's their choice, because they also have a First Amendment right to be able to say that. And so, you know, as we look at the future of these blended days, I know that it's not perfect, but I do know that we're moving in the right direction. One of the feedbacks that I heard is maybe not put them all at the end of the trimester. Spread them out, maybe have 2 at the end of the trimester and have some before. So we're open to those different ideas as well. So, but anyway, I don't know, board, I don't know if you guys have any other questions. I really want to just have this as a discussion part, just for me to be able to clarify what our district is doing, what our district wants to do. Again, feedback is okay. But if feedback needs to come up, intervention, that's what we're looking. If there's a better way to provide intervention, let me know. I'm not sure, because I know the Bonneville School District has unanimously voted to continue with a blended model with intervention and professional development once a day, all year long for their secondary. They're doing that currently. So this is not just something that you know, we both came up with those differently. I didn't look back and say, hey, what's Bonneville doing to try to get close to a 4-day school week? No, that's not what was happening. They looked at that because their kids and their teachers and their parents liked the intervention option. Jefferson started this last week. The Rigby School District is looking at doing something similar to what we are doing right now. We are not doing something that's just out there in the neck of the woods that the superintendent was just trying to conjure up. So it comes from a lot of feedback. This blended days was not my idea. The blended days idea was a high school teacher. They talked about it in a PLC conference on one of our professional days. I took that idea, I came back to the board, and this is where we're at. So it's one of those things. So I'm hoping that we keep moving forward. So I got a little passionate there, sorry guys.
A couple things. I appreciate that there was this issue on social media and you took this approach and
put information out there and educated people that maybe weren't informed for whatever reason. I appreciate that. And it's a little frustrating when people say, oh, we're just trying to get a 4-day school week when all the teachers are coming. It's not a 4-day for them.
Yeah,
You know, and inviting half the students or whatever.
and one thing
It's
that
not a
might
4-day.
be clear with the teachers aren't looking less.
No.
The teachers work maybe harder. It's like, if the teachers are taking this and looking at a way to help, they're actually working harder on these days. But they're willing to do it because they know it's gonna make an impact on those kids. They know it. And that's the part where our teachers are very, very mindful of that. And teachers trying, like if people are thinking that, oh, our teachers are just trying to get a 4-day because they're lazy, and unions are gonna make this. We don't have a union at West Jefferson. We have a teachers association. Our teachers association is not connected to the Idaho Union or the National Union. And the reason why that works is because the teachers association and this school board have worked together in a way where they don't need to go to arbitration because they trust each other. I trust the teachers union, I don't say union association, they trust you guys. Will they come and we'll negotiate with them? That's because this board has allowed it to do it, and we don't have what's going on in other places. Repeat that. We don't have a teachers union, we have a teachers association. There are no dues that they're paying to anybody at the Idaho area, or that if a teacher is individually doing that, that is their own decision, but it's not recognized as a union by West Jefferson. And we will continue to work with our association for as long as I'm superintendent here, and as long as the board wants to have that. Like, it's working well.
We're required to have intervention. We're trying to do it effectively.
And that's
On one hand.
that's
And
what
on
it
the
is.
other hand, we're offering high achieving students a lot of opportunities with dual credit classes.
Yeah.
Junior high students can take high school classes. You can
Yeah.
graduate from high school here with an associate's degree. Take advantage of that.
And we just talked about 2 other options that we're looking into as a board.
Some amazing teachers.
Yeah, so that goes back to these bullets here to provide additional time for project-based learning. I probably could have put on there all of the other opportunities. If you are taking a dual credit class, what better time to be able to get caught up on those homeworks? It's like,
A blended
it's
day.
not, this is not just for kids who are struggling.
Well, just like Mr. Demar said, that these CNA courses, that she's taking advantage of doing those 80-hour requirements on blended days. Let's see.
Yeah, I've been pleased with it, but like with everything, I know that just because Mr. Williams says that it's not gonna be just perfect and golden, I'll work through the mess of, well, this didn't work, let's tweak it here, let's try to just improve. And that's what I will always do. And so I'll keep doing that, but if the board does have direction that they want to move differently as we enter into the next year calendar, we did vote that we would approve it for 3 years. And so we do not need to make a change because we're keeping the hybrid schedule in place unless this board has an action item for me to go in there and change that. So the hybrid schedule, as we look at that, maybe we adjust where the blended days land throughout the year, but the hybrid schedule is what we have right now. We can tweak it based on that without having to go through the whole thing of reapproving, so. But I will have you, when we come to the end of it, we'll have the board ratify whatever calendar we have for the next school year. So you'll still have a say in that. We're not gonna discuss a 4-day or a hybrid unless this board asks me to do that. But that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna look at intervention, blended days and things like that.
To me, these blended days are achievement days that the students can fulfill their education, how they need to fulfill it in. If they need a little help, they'll get it. If they're high achieving, they can keep advancing.
And it gives choice to parents too. parents can have more into it. And I hope our parents aren't, good, take a day off, it's a day off day. And if that's what the parents want to do, it's gonna be hard for us to compete with. If, you know, then that's how it is, parent involvement, what parents want their kids to do. So, thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if you have any other comments. Like I said, I do apologize if I got a little passionate.
I think it was
on that
good.
one.
She was great.
All right, I think that's all the business we have. So the floor will be open for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we adjourn this meeting.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?